Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our discussion on teens and parents, joined by teenager Andrew Ingram. This is actually part 2 of teens and parents. So let's just get straight back on with the discussion.
Hello, Avra. Thank you for inviting me to be the voice from the teenage perspective.
In our latest situation right now, I hear a lot of parents saying, my teenagers hold up in their room all day on technology.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they're stuck in their cave.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why right at the beginning of our conversation, I was talking about time out. There's a lot of depression and anxiety amongst teenagers. There's a lot of suicide happening because there's no communication.
A tricky or complicated situation. And I do feel that the parents should have some sort of, they are allowed to knock on the child's door, just check how they are, because it's once again checking the child's safety, protecting them, loving and caring for them. And just, checking up and seeing how they are is always the best thing, whether the child dismisses it or, admits to it. I feel that just that little thing is really good for the child. But I'm saying is that also being in the bedroom can be a safe space for us teenagers, and sometimes
Sure.
there are moments, and every single human being on this planet has moments of wanting to escape from, if you would say, the world and not wanting to communicate with anyone, and it's normal. And I think that now that we have social media and technology, then that's where we go. And I'm sure parents had those moments of a teenager and they would go into their bedroom because you guys didn't have technology. I'm sure you would escape into your bedroom, either read a book, either read the newspaper, either, play around with toys or something. That was your escape. And would that be classified as, if you would say, being antisocial and stuff? But I think with the social media aspect, that is what is causing the mental health aspect. That's the decline. You're just wallowing. You could be wallowing on the bad side of social media.
Just elaborate on that a bit.
As in the bad side of the social media, you could be seeing the cyberbullying and the comparisons between, this ideal body, this ideal beauty standard, and then you look at yourself and then it's like, I don't follow this. So that's the one downfall with just wallowing through social media in your said cave. I do feel that a bedroom, your bedroom, is your safe space. That is already a bubble, a boundary that should be set in stone. And I can speak from experience when, a parent or a sibling barges in. It's a bit of like you almost feel a bit claustrophobic. I just feel that the bedroom for everyone is some sort of, if you would say, it can be a safe haven. And I think both sides, teenage and parents, should respect that. Teenagers should respect that their parents' bedroom is a safe space, and that the parent should also understand the boundaries and limitations of the child's bedroom and safe space.
This is my bedroom. Stay out of it.
Exactly.
Is that what you say?
Yes.
So if it's my bedroom and I must stay out of it, then you respect by making your bed, keeping it tidy, not having food all over the place, and not having dumpsters all over the place.
Exactly that.
If
it looks like that, then I believe the parent has every right to come in and, tell them to clean up. Because
they should knock.
With a knock. I was going to mention with a knock. If you are in your bedroom and it is a complete pigsty, that can already cause a decline of your well-being and your mental health, staying in your room, curtains closed, it's a mess.
So what about the perspective of, why should I make my bed? I'm getting back into it tonight anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's about pride. It's about what you've just said. It's about taking care of yourself, having some self-respect, having some self-care. Self-care is about looking after yourself. And that is what parents are trying to teach their children, not my room. So how about reaching a halfway mark? Mondays and Fridays, you make your bed. Come to a compromise, have a contract. Mom's not going to bitch and moan about Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So Monday and Friday, I have to make my bed. Or once a week, I'm going to pick up all the stuff that's lying on the floor. But for the rest of the week, if I choose to leave it on the floor. So now you've got clothes lying all over the floor, and you don't even know what's clean or dirty anymore. And the parents asking, and this is a huge issue in every household, please, can you put your dirty laundry in the basket? Okay. And then once a week, can we have a contract that you tidy up your room? Now, some teenagers say what I said just now. This is my room, back off, get out.
Deep down, I hope this inspires some teenagers. It's not our parents being nasty and dictating us and implementing rules. They know that keeping your space clean is so beneficial. And I mean, if there are teenagers who are taking time out of their mornings and evenings, as well as putting good food into your body, keeping yourself moving, you do the same thing for your spaces around you. By doing the good stuff for your body makes you feel good, but then when, cleaning up your room and, doing the chores, that's also making the space that you're living in. It implements that and it makes you feel good. That also makes you feel good. And I think that it should be said, also come down to an agreement that, your parents are not asking you to go clean their bedroom too. They're just making sure, keep your space clean. You want to live in that. You're not going to be living like this in everyday life when you move out. You need to keep your space clean.
It's called good self-care.
Exactly that.
And self-care feeds your mind. It makes you a happier person.
Exactly that. And you're not going to be going to school with unwashed hair and smelling badly from, not showering for 2 weeks. No, it's self-care. You keeping yourself clean so you can keep your space clean.
Now let's talk about schooling and studying, which is also another huge area of anxiety for parents. And they feed that anxiety onto their children. So my feeling is that once your child has reached the age of 14 years old, generalizing, they're now in high school. By the time your child reaches the age of 14, we work in 7-year cycles. So from 14 to 19 is their teenage years. You've taught them quite a lot by the time they're 40. They have a pretty good idea of what's going on. When it comes to studying, your children need to have some form of system that didn't work for you when you were young, that worked for them. So if you need to help your child find a study system that works for them, so that might be something like summarizing a paragraph and writing out 5 or 6 key words or sentences that summarize that particular paragraph, read it over 2 or 3 times. Okay. That person could have a photographic memory. They could look at a page through and remember exactly which word is on every page. That person could have a situation where they have to repeat over and over and over again in order to remember the work that they need to do to study. So the point I'm making is that we cannot, as parents, expect our children to study and learn the way we did. And it's a lot in this day and age. The teenager needs to be open-minded to listen to the techniques that the parent is offering and work out which one is working for them. Which way is the best way of learning? When the child gets to grade 8, it's time for the parent to say, this is your responsibility. If you're having a problem with studies, come to me, we'll go to professionals, we'll sort it out. I'll try and help you, whatever. And after that, I'm not going to tell my child, you need to study for this test because you're going to fail. That's taking ownership and responsibility.
Definitely.
And I think this is where the biggest conflict comes. You've got a parent permanently nagging you, go and study, you've got a test on Friday. I know parents who have no idea what their kids are doing. They have no idea what they're studying. They have no idea what tests are happening. That was my involvement. Today, parents are trying to work from home, and so are kids online, or they're going to school. But it's busy, and it's not conducive. But I think at the end of every evening would be good, or once a week, to catch up with your teenager and find out what are they learning, what are they doing, is there anything they're struggling with? Check in.
Definitely.
But this continual nagging about study does not work. You have to get to a stage in high school, unless your children have specific needs or special needs, that you step back and you say, this is where I'm teaching you. This is a responsibility. Have this conversation. If you fail grade 8 at the end of the year, be it on your head, you'll do it again.
I agree with you, definitely. And I think it's also nice to know that, I think from both sides, if the child does need help with something, then there's like communication boundary there, which I feel that can make the child feel a little bit more anchored to the ground.
Yeah.
Comfortable. And I think that studying and schooling can sometimes feel like the negative side of a chore.
Yes.
And sometimes put the weight of stress on the child. Asking for help is always, it should be there. But I think, once you get older, it has to come down into your hands, your responsibility. If you want to pass this test, mom and dad are not going to write it for you. You're the one that needs to study for it. So I do feel that it's something that you almost can't run away from. It's just the way we are, and it's something that you're going to have to do, and it teaches you responsibility. But when it does come to the schooling and studying, I think the worst thing that the child could go through is, from a parent, is, the parent having higher expectations for the child. That child's not going to study if that's what you're going to be doing to them. And I think a more motivating them, best thing you can do, rather than dictating them.
Give them incentives.
Exactly. Guiding them. I think that's the best thing, and that's what parents should understand.
Bribery is wonderful.
Exactly. That could work. I agree with that. I was told, you study for 2 hours and you do your best, and that we can see you've done your best on the test, then we can take you out, or you can get this, or whatever.
You have rewards for the things that you do.
Exactly. And I think it's always good to know that if you've got a parent behind you motivating you, it's the best thing.
Yeah.
And I feel that, it once again, as we always bring up in the conversation, is the communication. And I think if there's a communication between studying with the teenager and parent, it can really go a long way. And also having those moments of sitting down with the child and seeing what they're learning and talking about.
Being involved.
Exactly. And then you can even understand that, okay, this is what my child is struggling with, and this, how can I help, and what can my child do to help themselves?
But I think one of the most important parts of this conversation that I want to highlight, why is there so much anxiety around exams and tests? That comes from us as parents putting our anxiety onto our children by holding up not just high expectations, but over expectations, and continually nagging them. When we leave them to their commitment, it's not a cop-out. It's not like the parent is not taking charge, because the parent should be having this conversation with their child. When they reach grade 8, they need to say to them, are there any areas that you need help with? Okay. If you are okay, I'm going to have a contract with you. This is what I was talking about with the contract. And that contract I have to make with myself. that I'm going to find it incredibly difficult, but I'm not going to nag about studying. I'm going to keep abreast. I'm going to know what you need to do. I'm going to know when there's a test. And I will say to you, are you ready for your exam? Are you ready for your test? I'm going to show support and encouragement.
Definitely.
But I'm not going to tell you every single day for 3 hours, go and study, go and study, go and study. I'm also not going to bribe you to study.
Exactly.
That's your doing. But remember something, if you come up at the end of the year with 3 A's and 2 B's, for every A, you're going to get a reward.
I think that goes a long way for the teenager. And I think also what can really create an unhealthy environment in schooling and studying is when the parents dismiss the child who doesn't do well, you know.
We're not all academic. We're not all academic. Yeah.
You know, all of our talents lie elsewhere. And even if the child is rebelling, not studying, and they're not doing well, try not, dismiss them, scream at them. Try look at it at their point of view. What's happening with them? What's going on? Stand in their shoes. And once you come down to an agreement and communication, then both sides understand. There's definitely a reason. Why is my teenage rebelling? Why are they not doing well in school? There's something that's, finding the cause, sitting down with
look at the underlying issues. What is causing it? Yeah.
I was going to say the best thing for the child is having the parent, if you would say, the whisper in the ear of just motivating them and guiding them.
Right.
Beautiful. Brilliant.
So when we come to consistency, and this is something that is really important, is that both parents or one parent, if it's a single parent home, continues to be consistent. It cannot be okay for you on Monday and different for you on Tuesday. And that applies to parents as well. If it's a situation with a traditional family where there's a mother and father, they need to be on the same page. You cannot have a child going to the father who says no and the mother says yes. This is not just when your children are small. This is when you are teenagers as well. It is an important, valuable rule. Don't seek opportunity from one parent. But the parents have to come together and make this decision. And if the child comes to the parent and they are not certain about how they should go about it, there's nothing wrong with being honest and saying to your child, I'm going to talk to dad about this, or I need to talk to mom about this, or I need to have a little bit of time to think about this and I'll come back to you. But that causes so many problems. There's no consistency. So when it suits mom or suits dad, it's okay. And when it doesn't, it isn't. And that's hard as a parent because you also have to take circumstances into consideration. I'm just saying, generally, you need collective parenting.
Definitely. It's not a one-man job. But I do feel that I think that's where also teenagers have to understand that we have boundaries, so do our parents, and both of our parents are in it together. Sometimes some parents aren't, but I think that the worst possible outcome that the teenager could
inconsistency.
Exactly that. And as you said, where are you getting at by a teenager playing broken telephone? This parent, mom said no, dad said yes. That doesn't go well. It's the communication between all sides.
But you've also got situations, Andrew, where you have single parents. You've got situations where kids are moving from mum to dad, and there's different rules in different houses, which can also be quite confusing. Okay. And that is an agreement again as adults that parents must make this decision. This is about what's good for the kids. It's not what's good for the parents. Okay, it's there, and that's what we do. We have a contract when we are deciding to have children. We take on that responsibility and ownership. So from the teenage point of view, they also have to be understanding. If it's a single parent or if it's a divorced situation, they need to go with whichever is right for that particular environment. You know, maybe mom has a pool, dad doesn't, or dad has a pool and mom doesn't, as an agreement, and there are the rules because of safety. Okay, you're not going to be drinking around the pool as teenagers. Okay, it's dangerous. Okay, so that rule does not apply to the other parent if they don't have a pool. This is just like an analogy that I'm giving. Okay. So in some circumstances, there need to be different decisions in different environments. All I'm saying is somewhere we have to be consistent. Because if we're not consistent as parents, our teenagers begin to decide some days what's good for them and some days what isn't, like the chores. You're not setting an example if you are not setting an emotional consistency in your behavior to your children. That's a lot of the reason why children don't consistently do what they're supposed to do, because there's no carry through, there's no consistency.
Definitely. And I think that with this type of, the area we're talking on, I think the main perspective also would be that the teenager is a human being as well as the parents, and we can't expect our parents to be these perfect beings that are only here to almost work around our needs. As we've mentioned with single parenting, I think teenagers who might have a single parent or divorces involved, we have to understand that our parents are not happy 24/7 and they can do all of this 24/7. I think the coming down to the realization is that both sides are human beings and we all feel and have emotions. So, coming down to the agreement and, cutting out the nagging, that's one thing. And I think as a teenager, as a teenager, we can experience nagging from parents, from younger siblings, and we know how that irritates us. So then we should also understand that our nagging is no way different. So I think,
But you see, as a parent, I'm also saying to you, the nagging would reduce so much if you just do what you're supposed to do.
Yes, that is so true. And I get told, and in my opinion, and in my experience, I get told that a lot. And the nagging annoys me, but if I get the job done, where's the nagging? Nowhere to be found. So I think...
Not always, because we covered this in studying. Okay, then it's a parent's duty to stop nagging. The nagging comes from, as you've just said, from both sides. All I'm saying to you is on both sides, if we do what we say we're going to do, it does help reduce that nagging. If I've asked you twice, please can you make your bed, and you haven't done it, and that was your contract that you were going to make your bed, then you must expect for someone to be welching at you and mulching at you and mulching at you. True. Or do we shut up and say nothing and close the door?
I think there's a point where I think definitely, in my opinion, shut up about it and just close the door.
That's disrespectful, because you're not honoring your contract.
Yeah, that is,
But and that's what causes the conflict.
That's true. That's true. No, then I would agree with you there.
So as much as you want your parents to be consistent, you have to be as well. That's what I'm saying.
Yes. No, 100%, definitely.
Okay, so the last subjects which I do want to cover before we close on this particular chat is about sexuality. And about pornography and about transmitted diseases and how these affect teenagers and parents?
I think that when it comes to sexual, okay, well, actually all of this, it's taboo. It's, oh my gosh, ooh, sexuality, pornography, sexually transmitted diseases, you know, all of that. Sex, it's something that you don't speak about until your child is at a certain age, which I believe is wrong. So, you know, I feel that what I'm seeing is teenagers are getting more educated within themselves. Their parents aren't doing it. And sometimes parents don't understand it. That's the thing too, is parents, I feel that the understanding of sexuality especially is more prominent now than it was back when you guys were. It was
Sure.
it was behind closed doors. And it's definitely a new age now where sexuality is widely accepted, not all the time. But I do feel that that's where parents should also understand, where they should also maybe educate themselves on it. And how do I communicate with my children about it? Even the parent can come to the child and talk about that type of stuff. As by child, I mean more of a teenager who's at least between 15 to 19, because I have a few, in my opinion, of what I see in everyday life, teenagers are very educated on that. But I think when it comes to sex and learning about sex, I feel that type of stuff should be taught at such a young age, that I think parents should be telling their 5-year-old child that this is a penis and this is a vagina and this and the safeties around it, because it shouldn't be taboo. It's an everyday life. It's what humans do. It's our existence. And I feel that this is type of stuff that if it wasn't so taboo, everything would just be easier if parents educate their children about it, and if teenagers educate their parents about it. Life would be so much easier on this type of stuff. And I mean, it's normal. It's so normal. And I know pornography is a very, also can be sensitive topic. And I think a majority of teenagers watch a lot of porn. And I mean, porn has been happening for, I mean, I don't even know how long, but I mean, it's just adapted from magazines, you know, pictures to now on our screens on videos. But I do feel that it's such a difficult thing to talk about as a teenager with your parents, all of this type of stuff. It can be overwhelming, sensitive, and you know, it's I feel like talking about the stuff can sometimes be a little bit of coming out of a comfort zone. It's a bit like daunting. So just kind of, you know, taking away what it is, you know, it's normal. It's everyday life. If we can get that into our heads, then talking about it, finding the safeties, understanding boundaries with it can become and form 10 times easier.
So what do you think about sex education at school?
It should happen from, I think it should definitely happen at such a young age too. I mean, my time at school, I've barely had an in-depth classes of sex education. I mean, that's what I'm busy trying to organize, and if you would say fight for at my school, and I'm grateful for the school that I'm at, they listen to the students' voices and problems and concerns. And I think that because sex is so taboo, it's a bit like, if we're going to teach it, then let's just talk about the basics. That's it. There's so much to sex education. With sex education comes sexuality, gender, pornography, sexually transmitted diseases, gender, and sexual preference, as I've mentioned. Learning about that, I really feel life would just cruise along. And it's important. It really is important because it's normal. It is normal. I think learning in sex education, not just about to really put it down, is I've always learned about the penis and the vagina and a man and a woman. that's it. There's more to that. There's learning about masturbation. There's learning about LGBTQ+. There's learning about the safeties when it comes to sex and the everyday life and when it comes to the drugs and drugging and spiking. Learning about this type of stuff and educating children at such a young age can have a placebo effect in the future, and more of this negative stuff with it will eventually deplete and fall away.
Okay, so I'm listening to you and I'm hearing you and I am hearing you and I'm thinking, I don't know if I agree with sex education at school. I'll tell you why. I think you've got a class full of kids, teenagers, all feeling totally uncomfortable because, as you've pointed out, it's like a taboo subject. Now, where does that taboo subject come from? It comes from their home. Who better to teach you about sexual education than your parents? Where you're in a small environment, you're not sitting in front of the whole class. And I have spoken to numerous teachers who have to do sex education. And you have got at least 5 children in the class who have to do the shock factor. They actually, all they're interested in doing is seeing how much they can shock the teacher. They ask them questions that they know are inappropriate or totally unrelated to what's going on.
Exactly.
And
Definitely.
I'm thinking about the other kids that are feeling like they want to dig a hole. They're very uncomfortable. They put in a situation where some of them will just laugh along to make them look cool. Some of them are really, really unhappy. I don't think it's a good place to be discussing sexual issues in a classroom. I think it's very good for every school to have a guidance teacher. And if there is any situation where they, like you have an extramural, they could have a class, a chat class with that subject. And if those kids wish to go, that's voluntary. It's not like they're going there because they're forced to sit into and listen to a situation. I've spoken to lots of kids and they didn't learn anything from their sexual education. They don't feel like they've learned anything. So what I'm saying to you is at school, I'm saying to you, kids that are young at home should already be, as you rightly said, not taboo. Make them comfortable from when they're young.
Exactly. So then by you saying that, if you make the child comfortable when they are young, teaching them the aspects of sex education at a young age.
And allowing questions. Allow questions and answer them honestly.
Exactly. Communication, safety. Wouldn't that then have an effect of having sex education at school? Because they really understand it and it's not taboo. They're not going to be making the little snarky jokes.
Yeah, I agree.
Then that would mean sex education at school, if the child is taught at home, beneficial.
You can't guarantee that, Andrew, because 50% of parents are not comfortable talking about sexuality with their children.
So then that's why you should get a professional at school, not a teacher.
But the point I'm making is it should be voluntary, because you have a lot of children feeling extremely uncomfortable and learning nothing.
But then
it's important as a parent for me to tell my kids, if they watch pornography, that's not what lovemaking is all about. That's not what sex is about. Okay, it's a different situation.
But then what happens if the parent doesn't want to do it? They just feel like it's not maybe right space, right age, or they just don't feel like learning and teaching their children about anything to do with sex. Then how is the child going to learn?
Okay, so if you want to take me as an example, I was brought up, if you're going to have sex, you need to be on precautions or you will fall pregnant. That was it. That's all I was told. I didn't have illegitimate children. I didn't have any problems with sexuality. How much do the children actually read on Google? They've got full access.
That's true.
I'm saying when it comes from the being, you know, that they will need to take protection so that they don't fall pregnant and get, and they need to be aware of transmitted diseases. HIV wasn't around when I was young. There's so much more. And the one important thing that I felt from my experience, and it was only from my mindset, was don't sleep around. If you want to give yourself to someone, that's sacred, that's special, okay? That's a special partner. You know what teenagers around me said it when I made that comment? Life's not like that anymore. It's quite normal, as you talk about normal for sexuality, to have several sexual relationships. You don't need to be in a specific relationship to have sex. It can be with anybody at any time. So that was my set belief from me growing up, that if you had sex with someone, that was basically almost, and for me it was, someone I married. It wasn't about try before you buy, excuse the expression.
I think, Avra, we have hit a road where we both, you would disagree and I agree. And I think, I have a feeling it's going to stick like that, that there's our first disagreement and agreement, and it's natural.
Exactly. As long as you know the consequences.
Exactly.
And where do you learn those consequences from? That's what I'm saying. This is what I'm finding difficult. You know, you need children and teenagers to feel comfortable in the environment that they're learning about this. And from what I can see, Andrew, I don't think it makes any difference whether it's your parents or whether it's at school that you're getting that education. People will always be feeling uncomfortable when they need to talk about sex to teenagers, as will teenagers to adults. Someone's got to do it.
I mean, that's a question to ask, if you would call it a rhetorical question, of why is it so uncomfortable to speak about? Why is sex so ghastly? I mean, you know, if you look around, sex is, it's a natural thing, it's an everyday thing, and I mean every single thing on this earth has some sort of mating or sex. So why is it as humans it's like a don't talk about it?
And the same comes with how much more people are talking about mental health issues. More and more celebrities are coming out and discussing mental health things. Exactly. And I think this is also what's happening with gender-based things as well. That's coming out more and more. It used to be totally taboo to tell anybody that someone was gay. Now we are comfortable with that because it's, and the same thing has to happen with sexuality.
Exactly.
So the more we talk about it and the more we communicate, the more it will be more comfortable. But my point is it needs to come from the home, from the parent when they are young, when your kids are young.
Exactly. And I mean, you can also see it that not every parent teaches their child the right thing. And as you say, everything starts at home, and there's a lot of negative stuff that started at home, as in talking about the education and the teaching and stuff. But yeah, it just comes down to talking about it. And once you talk about it, there we go. It starts happening.
Well, you know, Rudolf Steiner said, receive the children in reverence, educate them in love, and find them faith in freedom.
And of course, you are not alone.
Of course.
Of course. And I feel that you are more than welcome to always A, ask for help, B, talk about problems, talk about your feelings, and B, have an understanding that, as I said, you're not alone. You are a human being, and that I think I'm so grateful that, you know, Avra and I are here to almost set us a path and a guidance that not everyone has to follow, but to understand. And I think that listening to us can really help both parties.
Well, we certainly hope so. Even if we can just help a few people, that would be awesome. But I think my message that I would like to give to today, and before I give you this message, when Andrew and I are talking, what comes out a lot is that teenagers seem to think that their parents are against them, are up to get them mad, are wanting to make their lives a misery. That's a normal environment of any teenager. Can I please ask you just to open communication, talk to your parents. Talk about things, have this open communication, and it doesn't happen easily, especially if there's been a breakdown in communication. But make the effort to have a contract with yourself that you're going to make a peaceful home to live in. There's nothing better than growing up in a happy house. We all have issues and challenges, but really there is space to open up and communicate. So my message today is, in order to find common ground between parents and teenagers, we have to adopt and adapt to more transparent and open communication style. And this includes respect for each other, listening and really hearing what the other is saying and what's vital, understanding and acknowledging what you are hearing. This will allow you to really appreciate the different perspectives, and that everyone has a different map and a personal goal and separate values. Parents simply try their best based on intuitive thinking and life experiences. That's what it's all about. It's the best interest of our children that we can attempt to create a safe and open communication for them. And I emphasize the word safe. Parents may need to be more aware of the changing world and all the challenges that this brings to our teenagers and all their concerns. In the new dynamic that we are finding ourselves in, it's our job to actually let teenagers find their best option and to navigate their individual paths as well, without losing control completely, and respect, knowing that they have the support of their parents. That is a good relationship. But most importantly, teenagers need love, attention, and freedom to learn how to embrace growth, becoming healthy adults. And if I could add to that it would be absolutely awesome if there's a breakdown in communication with your teenager, all they're really asking for is your time. Go for a walk in the forest, spend some time together playing a game on a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday evening. Try and bring this in naturally.
I definitely agree with you, Avra. And from my point of view, I think a parent and a teenager needs to take into consideration that we both are all human beings with feelings, emotions, and to understand that we all are in the same household. We all have our boundaries, our limitations, we all have our ideas, thoughts, and opinions. And I think coming down to an agreement of understanding one another can really go a long way. I think as teenagers, we all need to understand that our parents are not out to get us. They're not out to ruin our lives and not let us do what we want, but they're here to protect us, to love us, and to shape us into the people that we will be when we're older and when we step out the door and start our adult journey. And to understand that we're going to be in the exact same shoes as our parents. And to lastly end off, that parents need to understand that us teenagers, in the time we are living in, we are going through a lot, and just having to know that we still figuratively know that our parent is somewhat still holding our hand can definitely make a big difference. And understanding us as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. We do hope that this discussion has given you some insight and understanding of how the minds of parents and teenagers think from different angles and different perspectives. Again, please don't forget to like this video and support me by subscribing to my channel so that you don't miss out on our future videos.